Hello, adventurers, and welcome to the Micflayers podcast, coming to you from a ceremony chamber where a blood ritual will bind you to the service of your otherworldly patron. I'm your host, Conor Martin, and joining me as always is my co-host, Mr. Martin O'Dwyer.
Very metal, very nice. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, thank you very much. In case you haven't guessed from that or the title, folks, we're talking about group patrons today. But before we jump into that proper, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. I'm good. First weekend off I've had in a while, and we were talking about it earlier, but I got to see Shang-Chi on yesterday, which was really awesome. Go see it. The fight scenes are amazing, and particularly if you like Chinese mythology, there's a bunch of really cool Chinese mythology in there, and you get to see a lot of really cool stuff up on screen.
I've heard there's I saw somewhere online that they took a lot of inspiration from of Jackie Chan's performances,
Dude,
to like inspire some of the fight scenes and how Shang-Chi moves around the place and stuff.
It's so I grew up watching all the martial arts films because I fell in love with Bruce Lee movies when I was like 8, which in hindsight isn't a great time to fall in love with Bruce Lee movies because there's a lot of like drugs and violence and like yeah, a lot of stuff you probably shouldn't be watching when you're like 8. Like they saw a guy in half in an ice mill. I remember that from like The Big Boss. It was just like 8 years old watching a guy get sawn in half. I was like, oh well, Bruce Lee. But yeah,
I think at a certain age when you're that young and you see something that's like really crazy, like an adult would be like, that's insane. But you're so young, sometimes you can be a little bit like, yeah, that seems par for the course, right? That's just a normal thing people do on a Wednesday is saw someone in half in a mill.
I remember feeling weird about it, not liking it, and I used to just skip back to when it was just Bruce Lee kicking someone in the face again.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had moments like that as a kid as well. Do you ever play what was that game? It was like a Grand Theft Auto game, but it was for PlayStation 2 and it was based in London. It was called something Monday.
Oh no, you're missing me on that one.
It was basically kind of like kind of British gangsters instead of like American crime stuff. And there's some scene. It had the same premise where like you drive around the city, you do a mission, you come back to this person's place as a short cutscene, you get a new mission. That same kind of format. But there was one bit where you were turning in a mission, and I was playing with my cousin Jason. It was his game. And I was playing with him, and we drove back to the thing, turned in the mission, and when we went into like the back room of this bar, and there was a guy in there who was being suspended from the ceiling by some rope that was wrapped around his wrist. He was in like this big basin of like a foot deep of water, and a guy had a car battery hooked up.
My God.
But the thing is that what made it super twisted and what actually unsettled me as a kid was that the guy who was shocking him and torturing him was like dancing around and listening to music, kind of like that Stuck in the Middle with You scene in Reservoir Dogs.
Doing a Reservoir Dogs on it.
And he was kind of dancing around. He'd go like that, and he'd shock him, and then he'd just keep. And your man's like in absolute agony, and then your man just keeps on dancing like he's having the best time ever in a club, and it's so twisted. And I remember watching that and going, this isn't okay. I'm too young for, like, I remember thinking I'm too young for this. And if you can get like an 11-year-old or whatever to realize I shouldn't be watching this, because I think most 11-year-olds will watch a lot of stuff and be like, oh, I hope my parents, I know I shouldn't be watching this, but I'm okay with it. If an 11-year-old is like, I absolutely don't want to be watching this, you know that there's something really messed up happening.
Yeah, you've done your job as a video game designer. But I do. Circling back around to Shang-Chi. Yeah, super like old school Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung, that style, like Hong Kong theater kind of like fight scenes. Super creative, like really creative, and like I love that it's they don't do that. I was saying they don't do all the cuts away that you get in most like American action films. They mostly stay on the two people fighting and showing them that they're actually doing the moves. And from what I saw, like Simu Liu does like looks like pretty much all of his own like fight scenes and stuff. There's some, I think I saw some featurettes on YouTube of him and the person who plays one of the other characters doing like training for it, and they were proper training. Like he's in great shape as well, but that's like standard for your Marvel leading man nowadays, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you get cast. They're like, cool. Now off to the gym with you for the next 6 months, and don't come back until you look like oh God, what's his name?
Chris Pratt.
I love his. No. Well, Chris Pratt, I suppose, is one because he went from being
Chris Pratt, Chris Evans, Andy, Chris Hemsworth.
one of the Chris's. No, I was going to my God, the comedian.
Camilla and Jenny.
Camille Nanjiani, yes. Sorry, I was like, I'm a big fan of Camille. I'm really upset with myself that I've forgotten his name there for a moment. Yeah, because Camille was like just a regular dude, and he was a comedian and all that. And then he posted those pictures where you're like, oh my god, like what happened?
Banging the roids out of it. Banging the roids out of it. They all are. They absolutely all are. So is Chris Hemsworth for the newest Thor movie. Dear God, the size of him.
Chris Hemsworth looks inhuman in that still with him and Taika Waititi.
Yeah, because he's also like a naturally big dude. Like he was like, I think like when he was younger he was much lankier and kind of skinnier, but like he is a big frame.
When he was on
Home and Away.
Show. Home and Away. Yeah.
But like he's a big frame, whereas like Camille is like a smaller, skinnier dude. So like they're both just banging. All of them are doing it. That's how they get in shape. Like. Because they don't have the time.
Hemsworth's a pretty wiry dude. He's lean, like, but he's more tall and long. But what they've done, and like if you looked at Hemsworth on a regular day, like he's a very tall man. But if you showed me Hemsworth with those arms and stuff like that, now his proportions are changed to the point where if you showed him standing in a white room with no point of reference for scale, I'd be like, that's a very short, wide gentleman, because he's just gone out like that and the scale is all thrown off.
And he doesn't train legs either, which, whatever. He doesn't train legs, so like his upper body
his
is
hammer
way
pulled him off, so.
Oh my god, your hammer pulled you off? But yeah, that's... Go see Shang-Chi is the message, folks. It's really good. It's very, very fun. And if you're Chinese, it's probably the most Chinese movie I've seen in quite some time. Although I didn't go and see the Mulan, the live action Mulan, which I heard wasn't great.
It wasn't great. If you're gonna watch any Mulan, watch the original Disney, 1999 Disney one, I believe it's 1999.
I think so, yeah. But yeah, this is
by the way, the game I was thinking of was The Getaway.
Oh, okay, cool. But yeah, Shang-Chi is like super, super steeped in like Chinese culture. It's awesome. It's great.
It was 98. Sorry, my bad. It was 98. Watch the 98 animated one. That's the only one worth watching. Actually, no, sorry. Mulan 2 is quite good as well.
Watch the one with Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, watch the one. Yeah, with Eddie Murphy as a small red dragon.
Yeah.
But other than that, Martin, it was my birthday the other day. I'm 29 years of age now. Things are starting to slow down and stop working.
Yeah, I'm rapidly approaching 29 as well, and I don't like it.
We're gonna have to start looking into lichdom.
I know it's not D&D, but I think I'd rather become like whatever the D&D equivalent of a Jedi Force Ghost is than lichdom, because lichdom involves a lot of like your flesh rotting away, and that doesn't seem like it'd be fun.
I suppose you'd be leaving parties everywhere. If nothing else, it'd just be a nightmare to clean up. Like,
I'll work out a way to become one of the spirits and ancestral guardian summons. That's how I live on.
I mean, definitely maybe a Jedi Force Ghost instead. And also, with lichdom, don't you need to consistently feed your phylactery or whatever in order to keep your body stable and keep your soul in this world?
Yeah, and if you mess it up, you could be. Oh no, if you mess it up, if you're first time you try, you could end up just being a demi-lich, which is just like a skull.
Is a demi-lich a messed up attempt at being a lich? I think it is.
To D&D Beyond.
To our favorite resource, D&D Beyond. I think you're alright. I think it's demi-lich is, because I know there's something like. Do you know what? I'm getting my wires crossed now.
It is. So it's a demi-lich is what happens if a lich doesn't feed its phylactery enough. The demi-lich contains only a fragment of the lich's malevolent life force, just enough so that if it's disturbed, these remains rise into the air and assume a wraith-like form.
Cool. I was getting my wires crossed between 3 different entries in the monster manual, which was lich, demi-lich, and Draco-lich. And I couldn't remember the lore of all of them was just melded into one.
Wasn't there a new lich type brought in Van Richten's as well, where it's like you're just like you're like blood in a jar?
Oh, that sounds very strange. Hold up a second now. I'm gonna have a look at this.
It literally looks like an evil blood test.
Van Richten's, you've got some mad stuff going on.
God, I love the monsters in Van Richten's so much. They're so good. I haven't gotten a chance to use any of them yet. Mainly because I want to use the Doulahan, but I'm terrified it'll literally kill my entire party.
You'll know the day that I stop caring about our current campaign is the day I put the Doulahan into it.
Oh god, a Doulahan with a party with 2 barbs and it just looking to be beheaded.
Oh man,
I think Wabu would survive though. Oh no,
can he live without his head?
I think as long as, because he can rage beyond, like it doesn't, he can die and continue to live as long as he's still raging. So you still take whatever damage you take. So I guess if he took,
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know, maybe like where does rage come from? Does it come from the heart or the head or the soul?
I think that I would honestly I would say that's down to the individual character.
Yeah. Because
Like,
if you want to be
like,
scientific about it, rage would be enabled by like your adrenaline hormone, your adrenaline glands and stuff like that. So like if you remove the head, that connection to the body is severed, so the rage wouldn't be able to continue.
oh, I have the thing here you're talking about. It's called a necroicker, which is like an ichor of necrosis or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is the one where like it's literally a jar or a vial with a swirling skull-like red ooze inside it that is an undead lich or something like that. Cool idea, mind you.
Yeah, yeah. I'd love
For
to
some
put,
reason, it has a 20-foot climb speed. Is that in the jar?
that would be a fun one to have, like, do you know the way that in Rick and Morty there's the Needful Things episode where it's the like gift shop with like all the cursed items in it.
Yes, yeah.
That would be a fun one to have something like that in your story, and then have the party come into it and they're looking for potions, and you give them a rack of potions, and you're like, yeah, here's 6 health potions for, you know, however, like whatever, like however many gold. Yeah, there you go, take them, and then like the liquid in it is red also, so you can't see the necroicker swimming around in it, and then someone tries to drink the necroicker. Oh, that would be great.
That'd be an interesting one. I mean, you'd really be screwing over a player to take away their character, because okay, when you said that, my brain immediately went to, what if the necroicker like began to live inside them and started slowly taking over them? I mean, that could be a cool quest. There's a great comic by B. Dave Walters, which is based on his home D&D game, where it follows some of them, and they're on is it the Moonshae Isles or something like that in the Forgotten Realms, and one of their dragonborn friend basically gets possessed by like the spirit of an ancient evil malevolent dragon, and he's one of the players in his game, but he gets possessed, and it's really cool because they're fighting this bad guy, and the whole time they're like, let our friend go and all this. He's like, your friend is gone, your friend is I'm here now, your friend is gone, forget about him, you know. But it could be a really cool thing to take one of the player characters and make them the bad guy in the campaign.
I would just love that as like a surprise encounter, and like Joe, like they're like they finished a tough fight or something, and like they're going, like they have 1 potion left. So it's like, oh shit, better pop this potion before we go to the next battle. And they're like, oh shit, and then they kill it, and then they go, who sold us that again?
Yeah.
And then they go and find that guy. That would be a fun questline.
I would do it with a D6, and I'd say, here are 6 health potions that you found in or you bought or whatever. And every time someone drinks one from the thing, I'd be like, cool, roll a D6. And if you get a 6 or a 1 or whatever it is, it's like, that's the one that has the ichor.
Yeah, start the encounter with a necroicker.
Yeah.
Ooh, that would be both fun and evil, which is the best kind.
It'd be great because it'd be something super completely random that would happen inside of you could be like you said, in an existing encounter. It's like, oh, we're fighting the dragon. Oh no, God! You could health potion, and all of a sudden you're fighting.
That could be a game ender now that I think about it.
I just think it'd be really like that. That reminds me of the time you actually in this campaign you found a jar with like some kind of like frosty kind of like cold swirls going around inside of it, but the label was faded, and I think you assumed it was like an alchemist frost, and at one point you got into an encounter where there was a wall of flame and you needed to allow for Wabu to pass through it without getting burned. So you're like, as I'm running away, I'll throw this alchemist frost on that particular 5-foot section, and hopefully that'll douse that flame and he can run through that gap in the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, is this the one you found in the wizard's tower at the bottom of the lake? And you were like, yes. And I'm like, cool. And I'm like, I just have to look up the spell, and it was like sleet storm, because it was a sleet storm in a jar. And I knew this going back 2 or 3 weeks when you found it, and I'm like, I'm waiting for the day he gets to use this, or he decides to use this, and it actually ended up just being. It actually worked out in your favor because the golem that was chasing, like it was basically wall of fire, Wabu, golem, and the golem was chasing him, but the golem has absolutely dirt dexterity stats. So like it kept slipping and sliding and falling prone, and it couldn't stand up on the ice created by the sleet storm. So Wabu managed to get away, luckily.
One of my more resourceful moments as a barbarian, rather than just being like stab, smash, destroy.
Usually it's flip a coin. Do I use my spear or set my dog on them?
Oh,
Or both?
Yeah, nowadays it's both, and I'm very happy.
Nowadays it's both.
My dog pushed someone off a 500-foot cliff this week. It was phenomenal.
That person took 192 points of damage from falling. I was basically a grotesque stain at the bottom of that pit.
Also known as mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. But luckily so as well, because that we talked about it just for jumping into the podcast as well. That particular necromancer was in a state of like half-life, where she was incredibly difficult to kill, and you guys had her at 1 hit point for a long time, but she kept making these con saves that kept allowing her to come back, and eventually the dog just nudged her off a cliff and she just fell 500 feet. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna roll 50 d6 or whatever for the fall damage here, and I rolled them, and I'm like 192. Yeah, I don't feel like I can justify rolling a con save on 192 points of damage, so she's dead.
Yeah, no, that was just this needs to go now.
yeah. You did like Jamie Lannister on it, just push, go away.
The dog just goes, the things I do for Lug.
It worked. Oh my god. Martin.
Yes.
We're talking about group patrons. We talked about this a couple weeks ago very briefly. I think we said we'd talk about it in more depth. Group patrons in D&D, what's your understanding of the matter?
They're like warlock patrons for like an organization, isn't it? Or like for something
more or less.
Like basically like you could have like a thieves guild or like any kind of guild really. And they all take essentially make like a warlock pact with an entity that like is bound to basically the organization as a whole. I'm not like super up on group patrons because I haven't put them in my world. But yeah, educate me, Connor.
I will. So basically, there is some like otherworldly beings that go along with group patrons, but they're not strictly elementals. Celestials, fiends,
sorry.
like
The other meaning for the like normal meaning of a patron is in someone who gives you money.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So there's a few different examples here. Basically, it is a single person, organization, or entity, or something like that ties all your characters together, because all your characters are either bound to or work for this person. And they come in a bunch of different forms. And honestly, I think that the introduction of them is a really, really great thing, particularly for like ideas around campaigns. Like something I find comes up in a lot of campaigns, or people tend to gloss over because they're like, we won't talk about why this group of completely random people has decided to stay together as an adventuring company when we have such conflicting ideas. Like, I'm super religious, I'm an atheist, I'm like a demonic warlock, I'm a cleric of the church, and like it's like, but we're all still friends, so we hang out and go to the tavern and kill monsters together, and it kind of makes no sense some of the time. But the group patron thing is really, really good because it allows you to have a reasonable reason as to why any of these people would hang out together, why they would be bound and work in the same team. Because, I mean, like I said, I've often kind of tried to shoehorn in methods in which you guys will reasonably stick together. Like with this campaign, you guys did not know each other in the first session. There was basically a zombie attack. You were some of the survivors. At first, you stuck together because it made sense that you would, because you're like, oh, we don't have any equipment and we're miles from the nearest town. We'll need to stick together to try and survive, and that made sense. And then after a bit, I think immediately after that, you were asked as a group, you're like, oh, I think the mayor of the next town was like, you guys apparently help these people survive in the road, and you're very resourceful. We're in a bit of a pickle. We need some people to kind of help police our town. I'd like to deputize each of you as members of our town, so that you can like watch over us for a while, and I'll pay you and all that kind of stuff. And then that kind of formed the basis of why you guys stuck together originally. And I did the same thing in campaign 1 inadvertently as well, because you guys in session 1 of the very first session I ever ran was a dark elf named Vizarno, who was essentially, he was a group patron in a way, and he was like a broker for jobs. It's like anyone needs a job done, they come to him. He's like, cool, I'll hire a handful of people, organize them into a team, send them over to you to get the job done.
He's a fixer.
He's a fixer, yeah. And that's very much where that started as well. And again, you guys were together for that reason of working together, and then it's always a big catastrophic event with me. And then the city got overwhelmed and attacked by a huge army, and you guys escaped on a boat. And when you got to the next city across the sea, you were like, well, we might as well just keep working together because it's working out pretty good for us so far. But this, I feel like that again. I feel like there's times when it's like, my patron is a devil in the nine hells. My patron is a cleric of light. I'm a cleric of light. I worship the god of light and happiness and joy. Or like, I'm a wizard and I care about science and I have no interest in otherworldly beings, gods or anything like that. And it's like, these are three really conflicting people. Why the hell do you hang out together and why are you friends?
Or I'm a wood elf who's specifically racist against drow, and there happens to be a drow prince in my party.
Yes, that was also a thing with Sage in campaign 1. Yeah. I played into that a little bit because I'm like, she, of her own accord, Tara was like, oh, I'm a wood elf, I live in my village, there's a gem there that's very sacred to us, it's been stolen by a dark elf. I don't know who that dark elf is, but blah blah blah. And I'm like, oh, there's a dark elf in the party, I'll meld these two together. But it did often end up with her just being her very racist towards dark elves.
Yeah that never changed, really.
She is, yeah, do you know what? As a character, she probably has the least amount of growth of anyone in the party. I think she grew a little bit to realize that people who aren't her aren't completely useless. She was very much a self-sufficient, I do things my way and blah blah blah. And by the end of the campaign, she's like, I acknowledge that there are other ways to do things. She doesn't agree with them, but I acknowledge that they exist.
Other people can sometimes, in the right circumstance, be useful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's her idea. Like, that's her idea of friendship. That's the big heartfelt moment is her turning to you and going like, just turning to Eru, be like, Eru, we traveled together for a long time, and I want you to know, I think that you're adequate at what you do.
Yeah, that was pretty much Sage.
Which there's what was it? Oh my god, what was it? Oh, there's a bit in Parks and Recreation where one of the characters is leaving and someone comes up to her and they give her this huge long-winded speech about how they're going to miss them, and they think, oh, you're going to be an amazing mother and I wish you all the luck in the world. I think you're going to have a fantastic life where you're going and everything. It's going to be so good. And she's like, oh, thank you so much. That really means a lot. And then this other guy comes up, Ron, I don't know if you know Ron Swanson. He's very reserved. He's not very emotional. And he goes, I just wanted you to know that I enjoyed parts of our time together.
I think I've seen that clip.
Floods of tears, and she's like, "Oh my god, that's the most beautiful thing. Thank you."
I think I've seen that clip. Yeah,
it's really that's exactly that's the best you can hope for out of Sage. Is I enjoyed parts of our time together.
Yeah, I think that's a solid option. All right,
yeah. So with group patrons, there's actually cool rules in this. This is page 83 of Tasha's Cauldron and everything. There is, so the idea of them is really good for tying a party together. Because the different examples they have here are like, you can be part of an academy, a guild, a criminal syndicate, a religious order, a military force. There's really cool ways that you can tie everyone in together and stuff like that. And it really helps with aligning the goal to the party, because sometimes people's characters can when you have the motley crew of adventuring party members where everyone's from a different background and different parts of the world and they have different cultural things, and it's like no one wants to do the same thing. Whereas the campaign could run a lot smoother early on if you're all part of the same religious or military organization, and it's like, why are we going here to kill this monster? Well, because your commanding officer told you to. That's why. And it's like, okay, cool. That actually puts things in complete perspective. This is my job. I've signed up for this organization. I will now go do the thing that my commander told me to do. But there's some cool rules here that I didn't realize. One of which is a thing called group assistance. Basically, it's a once-a-day inspiration, but you can only grant it to other members of your party.
Okay.
And it's a way of you to collaborate. It's a really cool rule for like collaborating and kind of making people collaborate. So I have an inspiration die that stands apart from my other inspiration die. And basically, well, actually, no, sorry, it's not even. It's a reroll, so it's an advantage on one thing. But as long as you are within audible range and you can see the other person, let me see now. To grant advantage in this way, the character and the chosen target must be able to see or hear each other, and neither can be incapacitated. And you can just grant them advantage like that.
Yeah, that's pretty
really, really cool. It's cool, and everyone gets that once a day. So I mean, it encourages collaborative play really, really well. I think that could be really, really helpful for parties or adventuring tables made up of mostly new players, because it's gonna be like, it stops you from using it on yourself, and then kind of encourages you to be like, oh, do you need the thing? I'll let you use this thing, and then it's like, oh, look, we're working together, teamwork, yay, confetti.
Yeah, it's basically like another, like a, let me see, how is it a bonus action to do this?
As a result of this unity, each member of the party can grant advantage on attack rolls, saving throw abilities to a member of the party. Advantage. I don't think it's a reaction or anything. I think you just have a single use.
Oh, it's like a pool.
You know when you have like an inspiration. I know some people do inspiration differently. Sometimes it's a die, sometimes it's a reroll.
Yeah.
But would say in this case, it doesn't cost you anything to do that. You're like, I'm just going to use this inspiration now, so you would only give yourself advantage. But in this case, it's one that you have to use on another member of your party.
Oh, okay.
But I think it's a super cool idea. It's a really, really simple rule, but I think it makes a lot of sense in terms of that collaborative thing, which is, I think, the main basis of a group patron is to kind of align people and have them collaborating on objectives together. You know?
Yeah. No, I think it's like, yeah, I actually really like that group assistance one. It's basically like, so like, say you have a 5-man band style party. One person's making a roll. So there's like essentially like 4 people who have an inspiration loaded, ready to go if you need it, basically, that they can do like once a day. That's really cool.
And you could play it off very thematically as well. Like it could be a case of someone makes an attack roll and they get a nat 1, and then you might say, okay, I want to use my guidance or my group assistance to give to Martin so that he can re-roll that attack. And then if you do it and you hit, you can kind of theme that in such a way or describe that as me being across the battlefield, and I say, Martin, go for the legs, something like that, and that moment of me directing you is exactly what makes you get the sweep on the leg and you get the damage or whatever,
Yeah, I like that a lot.
You could scale or not scale up. What's the word I'm trying to think of? Describe it, I guess. You could describe it in that way. Flavor. Thank you, God, my God Almighty. Do you know what the thing is? I often have a cup of coffee before we do this, because I will often be quite tired by the time we get to the afternoon. Coffee makes everything run faster except my actual thoughts. My thoughts are still very much slowly trickling out. Have you ever been backpacking or anything like that in a supermarket and then just been there and it's like you have 5 bags ready to go and someone hands you something, you're like chuck 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 chuck, and you have the ability to go super fast. But then the person at the checkout's going beep, beep, and you're like, I need, if you can go faster if you want, because I'm totally capable. And that's what my mind is like. My mind is coming out with fewer thoughts than the rest of me can keep up with. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep rolling.
That's because coffee doesn't actually give you energy. It just blocks your brain from sending tired signals.
Is that what it does?
Yep. That's what caffeine does.
That's good to know.
That's why you crash so hard half an hour later.
Because all the signals flood through afterwards, and you're just you actually are very tired.
For half an hour, you're very tired, but you just don't get the signal that you are, and you're making yourself more tired. And then after half an hour, you go, oh my God. Yeah. That's
pretty accurate. So there's a few different types, like I said, of group patrons. I'm just going to go through them with you now, and there's a few interesting things I thought. The first one that comes up here is the academy. So this is like a university, whether it be magical or otherwise, or an academy or an archive or something like that, where you might be tasked with investigating certain, historical sites. And there's actually a few different things I wanted to go through, because there is plenty of tables, which I really, really enjoy. The academy one kind of reminds me a little bit of the Cobalt Soul in Critical Role.
Okay.
As they are an organization, and I think one of them here is an organization of secret monastery, an organization of monks who look after and transcribe data and stuff like that, and they have a huge archive. I have a similar organization in my world, which is made up of Earth Ganassi shadow monks in a city called Gyaoyan in the archive. And I think that would be a very similar one that you could use for this academy function. Martin, in order to determine what type of academy you are in, will you roll a d6 to me?
Alrighty. Oh, first roll at my fancy new shattered mithril dice from Dakota Irish.
Shout out to Dakota Irish.
Okay. Oh, I love what the first one is. Like, it's just Hogwarts. Oh, of course.
Oh, boarding school, yeah.
I got, and that's what I got.
Oh, okay. So Martin, you got a 1 on your dice, which is boarding school. Students and faculty enjoy a familial relationship on a self-contained campus. You're pretty much gone to Hogwarts. So that's an example of one of them. There's also other ones here like Arcane Enclave, Secret Monastery, Elite Institution, Vault of Secrets, and
the
Museum of Dreams.
The wizardly boyfriend's art is sick.
Yeah, there is. It's really really cool. So there's all different types of academy. It's not necessarily, because academy makes it sound like it's a school necessarily.
Yeah.
And the first one is, but sometimes it can just be a collection of wizards that aren't necessarily teaching, but researching together. It might be more like a laboratory,
like a university.
a collective laboratory. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then or like a Vault of Secrets. The Vault of Secrets is probably a bit more like my Gyaoyan archive thing. And there's a few different kind of perks and stuff that go along with this one. So there's like compensation. So for example, if you want to do research as per the downtime activities in Xanathar's Guide to Everything, check out our podcast from 2 weeks ago to hear about our downtime stuff.
That's a good one.
There is that you can basically get it at less of a cost because you are a member of the organization.
Yeah.
You can also do stuff here like you have access to resources. Like you might just be able to enter the library instead of having to pay a fee or something like that. Or maybe the library is only students are only allowed in the libraries. So if you're just adventurers wandering off the street, you can't get access to this, so you can't do your research. But if one of you is a member of this thing, or because it's group patrons, if all of you are members, you can all gain access to it. There's also training here as well that you can learn as per, again, the Xanathar's downtime rules.
Yep.
So that you can learn new languages, and you can also do, I think specifically for Academy, actually, they allow you to potentially gain proficiency in Arcana, History, Nature, or Religion by the same method, which isn't normally something you can do. It's normally you can either learn languages or tool proficiencies. This lets you do those, but also these, you get proficiencies in certain skills as well, which is really, really cool.
I really like that. I actually really like any way that the game gives you to increase the skills you have. I'm always a big fan of. Just because there's very few classes that you find that get a ton of skills aside from maybe like Rogue and Bard. So it's nice to have additional skills.
And Ranger, I think, gets a few. I think Ranger gets 3 or 4. I can't remember. But that's one thing I noticed, like, because I played Ranger for a while, and I played bits of Rogue and stuff like that. And when I played with Bard, first of all, they get like 2, and I'm like, I felt super underpowered in the skills department. I mean, I know I was great in the battlefield, but I felt super underpowered in the skills department because I'm like, I only have, I had that plus my 2 that I got from my background. So I'm like, I only have 4 skills instead of having 5 or even 6 skills. Or, like you said, being a bard and having jack of all trades, which is so bloody broken. But yeah, and then there's so that's some of the advantages. These are your academy perks. Each of these things comes with perks that you can get just for being involved with the organization. Martin, will you roll a d6, please?
Let's see what we get this time. A 6.
A 6. So, Martin, in each of these organizations, there is a thing called a contact that you have, which is generally your first point of contact, the person you report to or anything like that. In your case, you got Distant Observer. A mysterious sponsor encourages your research from afar to avoid alerting nefarious forces embedded within the Academy's bureaucracy. So that's a very interesting one. And I love roll tables because you get really random pairings you don't always think of. So you're basically in a school in like Hogwarts. It's a sequestered away establishment, and now you are being contacted by someone who gives you little nudges and asks you to research this and could point you in the right direction, but you maybe don't know who they are. They could be secretive. They might go by a code name. And it's all because they want you to find certain things, but if they too blatantly come out into the open or make contact, it could there's basically a Professor Snape or a Quirrell or something walking around, and you're like, I don't want them to know what I'm looking into, but it's important that I look into it, and they keep their distance as a result. There's also celebrated instructor, harried functionary, infatuated tourist, or spectral fragment. That's interesting, actually. A haunted piece of the Academy's collection compels you to complete a secret research.
Ooh, that's
a Tom Riddle's diary.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Combined with the first role I got, yeah, totally. Other than that, I immediately went to like Lovecraftian horror. You know, like you open the book and you're like a lot of what you've done with Arkham this campaign.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He found the Necronomicon. He opened it, and he just wasn't the same afterwards. And he's like had this compulsion to find out more information and stuff like that. There's also a section. Here's one thing I'll spin back on this a little later as well. There is a section for different roles within the Academy as well, so, and all the other ones. So just to take the Academy as an example, there is student, Harry Potter, groundskeeper, Hagrid, professor, McGonagall,
of course,
researcher. That's actually a tough one.
Hermione.
Sure. Financier, Malfoy.
Nah, Harry. He's the rich cop.
I suppose. And then expert speaker, Dumbledore. Or if we want to get weird about it, Gilderoy Lockhart.
I knew you were going to say Gilderoy Lockhart.
I watched scenes in that movie again recently, and I'm like, you know what? That man does not get enough credit for the hilarious and stupid character that he played in that movie.
He directed Thor 1, yeah.
Did he?
Yeah, he directed. He's the guy who made Chris Hemsworth tint his eyebrows.
God. Oh, okay. Move swiftly past that one. But so this basically, they give you all these like different roles and stuff like that, and they give suggested backgrounds that you can use to basically fit the role a bit more. And I'm like, I honestly don't like this section very much, if I'm being perfectly honest about it.
Do tell.
Honestly, it's a bit hollow. I'm like, I don't know. I feel like, particularly with a lot of them, I feel like you could be literally, these are giving you these suggestive backgrounds, and I'm like, you can literally be anything though. Like, why can't I pigeonhole it? Because like student, for example, it gives you acolyte, guild artisan, noble, outlander, sage, urchin. I'm like, first of all, those are all very different. But I'm like, I could also be a sailor. I could also be a soldier. You know, I could be a bunch of different stuff. And I just feel like, whereas I like the idea of having a role or having a rank within the organization, I don't like the idea that this section is purely to point you in the direction of a background you might take. Because I'm like, I don't need help picking out my background, you know, and it doesn't really get like this. I just feel like it's lacking in value, this particular table. That's all.
I would disagree.
Would you?
I don't have a problem with stuff like that because it's just a suggestion.
Oh no, absolutely. But I mean, like, that's what my thing about it is, I'm like, I'm fine with being suggested to do something. That's grand. More so, I part of me is actually more like, I think I would rather that like it suggested subclasses to me. That's more impactful. Like, or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe subclasses like groundskeeper. You could recommend ranger or something like that, or rogue scout.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Or druid. You could be professor. It could be like wizard, sorcerer. If you are, I don't know. Let's see, a researcher. Maybe you're down as an artificer. Financier. Maybe you're a bard who's like part banker or something like that. You know. Or expert speaker would be bard for definite. Yeah. I just feel like there's maybe you could give more. There could be more bite to that. It feels like like I said, I don't necessarily disagree with what they're saying here.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that there could be more bite to it, that what they're suggesting have carried more weight. One thing that I think I talked to you about this before. I can't remember if I mentioned it in the podcast. There's this idea I had for like a campaign that I would do some point in the future, where I would have you guys play a military organization. You'd be like an order of knights. And this kind of hits on a similar mark, but not quite the exact same. Let me just bring up a note I have here. Basically, I had this idea for granting different roles within the organization. So, for example, if you're a military organization, I would organize you guys into not quite an adventuring party, but a squad of soldiers, and you'd work in like a 4 or 5 man squad or whatever. And I'd give you each positions, but the positions would come with actual tangible benefits. So instead of just saying, hey, you're the scout, you're the lookout, so you should probably take Sage or Outlander or something like that. Instead, I would be like, you're the scout, you get, I don't know, advantage on rolls to navigate, or you get some other benefit. Maybe you have no problem seeing at long distance in fog or light rain or something like that. Maybe you overcome those effects. A couple of the ones I had here were Master of Ravens, which is essentially a radio person. You would be the person who's on the battlefield relaying information to other squads. And I very much picture like the people with the big World War II backpacks where they throw them down on the ground. What I would do is I'd give you the message cantrip, and I'd give you a once a day casting of Animal Messenger as well. So you can literally short distance, you can send someone a message over 120 feet, like with message, and that's essentially you on the radio. Or you can do an Animal Messenger, which is essentially you sending a raven back to the command post or back to the camp to inform people of something, and I feel like it's small, but I feel like it puts someone into the role,
Yeah.
I also had one for like a chaplain as well, like a war chaplain. That would be like you get Spare the Dying and you'd get Gentle Repose as well. So Spare the Dying can obviously bring you back, and Gentle Repose then, I believe Gentle Repose stopped you from becoming undead or from your body from rotting for a certain number of days.
It does, and I might be confusing. Is Gentle Repose also the one that extends the time limit for revivification?
I think it does. 1 second now. I wrote this down a long time back. It's a second level spell. Oh yeah, it does. It effectively extends the time limit on raising a target from the dead. So like potentially, if you don't have any diamonds in order to do Revivify or no spell slots left, you can cast this because you are the medic essentially, or the chaplain. And this allows you to make it so that later on you can bring that person back. I'd also one idea as well for a standard bearer, so you carry the flag, and I thought maybe that would have some sort of ability to move people, because they'd rally to the standard bearer.
Yeah.
So maybe like once a day you can raise the flag, and all of your allies within 60 feet can move up to their full movement directly towards you without provoking attacks opportunity or something like that.
That sounds familiar.
You have it on a sphere at the moment, but like the idea is that it's a rallying cry. You are the standard bearer. You're rallying the troops in so that you can then mount an attack or something like that. And I just think giving more tangible roles like that would have been way more interesting than just saying you can be a student or a teacher or a groundskeeper and pick a background. Like these are all I just feel that contains way more bite than any just suggestion of backgrounds.
I get that. I think they're specifically with this seems like going for more of a role play thing where you don't necessarily need the heftiest mechanical stuff there.
Well, yeah, and I think that's fair. Like, don't get me wrong, mine is like a whole other system that I would have to devise myself for military roles and stuff like that.
That's why I'm not really bothered by it, because it, like, from what you said, it sounds very like it all seems very like RP focused, sort of like how they're going with the Strixhaven book, where everything is very much like a social encounter based kind of thing. So like all of those positions, they all seem very like social encounter based rather than say like a combat based thing. So I can see why they'd be suggesting say backgrounds instead of subclasses, because with backgrounds you'll get your languages, you'll get your skills, you'll get your tools, you'll get certain things like I know most of the classes you have like one kind of a ribbon ability almost, not on the classes but the backgrounds you'll have a kind of a ribbon ability almost.
like folk heroes.
That's literally the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, folk hero, like I think small common folk will shelter you from danger or something like that. I think soldier is that you have knowledge about military organizations or armies and stuff and commanders and all that jazz. Yeah.
And I think acolyte, then you can like seek help from others in your organization and things like that.
Yeah.
That's why I think they're suggesting backgrounds here rather than subclasses. And also why it doesn't really bother me either, because it is a suggestion. Like, you could technically do the same. So like, say you take your acolyte background, right? Your acolyte background is like, oh, you can seek help from members of your order. Like, you can do almost the same thing by taking the soldier background, because then you have knowledge and influence within your organization. So like, I would narrowly speaking, if I had someone who took a soldier background and was doing one of those things and were like, I need to do X thing, because goddamn near every modern fiction. Oh, my old army buddy X is coming to town. He's going to help me with Y. You know what I mean? Like how often do you see that? And he was like, "Oh, my old army buddy Tex is in town."
Yeah, and he's always called Tex.
Yeah, or Ned from South Park.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's that's fair. That's fair. Look, I mean, like I said, I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong with what they're doing. Yeah. I maybe just wanted it to be a bit more fleshed out, but maybe that's because I already had this idea for different roles in mind. So when they're like, "Here's the academy roles that you can have," by comparison to what I would like to see in that kind of thing, it's not as much. It's not wrong inherently. Yeah. I just feel like maybe in my mind I would have gone further, but again, maybe there, I don't know. I can see why not.
A literal expectations versus reality moment, like.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But yeah, that is the Academy. There are other ones here as well. I wanted to point out some interesting ones. Next one's Ancient Being.
This is kind of that one. That was cool. That one looks cool.
This is very much warlocks. It can be an Elder Dragon, a Lich, a Bound Fiend, a Guardian Celestial, the Endless, which is a person who has lived for many lifetimes and seemingly cannot die.
So Kang the Conqueror.
Basically, or a Primal Manifestation. There's some really cool ones here. This kind of jumped out to me as a very interesting one because it's so otherworldly and stuff like that. I thought about it like doing a campaign where at the very start of the campaign there is some sort of catastrophe or disaster. Everyone in the town or city is killed, but you 4 or 5 players wake up and you don't know each other. But you wake up after each having an individual dream where a death god or some sort of outer being has approached you and says, "You belong to me now. Seek out your compatriots and I will direct you from there." And at that campaign might either be like, do we do what our patron says, or are we looking for a way to get the hell out of this deal, you know? I think that could be kind of interesting.
That sounds like a real fun campaign, to be honest. If we were like, okay, make a character, you all die. You all die and you wake up and the Grim Reaper is like, come, wake up now. You belong to me. Oh, that's very Ghost Rider, actually, now that I think about it.
Gavin did it to me when my character Renyoff died. Renyoff got killed and I was like, oh god, I invested in this character. And then he did a one-on-one session with me where Renyoff woke up in like a weird cottage and there was this little girl who was talking to him, and then the little girl turned into like a big burly man, and then back into a little sheepish man, and took all these different forms. And Gavin was swapping voices left, right, and center. He did a really, really good job of jumping between all these different accents and pitches and stuff. Basically, it was the god of death and trickery, and it was like, hey, look, I actually think you're pretty swell. I'd like you to do a job for me, so I will send you back on the condition that at some point I will call on you and you will complete this job.
Yeah.
And the job was to murder another god. And I was like, and not only that, Renyoff was a half-orc, and this god was like the patron god of orcs.
Oh.
And I was like, oh wow, this has a lot of weight to it. So yeah, that was something like that is really cool, but again, flesh it out to the whole party.
This would be again. I don't know if I know we've mentioned it in our D&D sessions before, just because it's kind of cool. But like, if you've watched some of the latter seasons of Supernatural, there's an organization called the Men of Letters.
Yes.
And like they have their own like base with a giant library in it and all of these ancient artifacts for like hunting down and killing monsters and demons and all this kind of stuff. And like between the group patron rules and like the stuff for like they have for like starting a guild, you could legit like do a full on like home base with agents, kind of Men of Letters, like a Witcher organization. We're 49 minutes in. Fucking.
Oh wow! Actually, I wasn't tracking it, but I'm pretty sure that might be the first curse we've had.
Yeah, I know. I think it has been. Yeah, but you could do the Men in Black, like.
Oh my god, the Men in Black would be so amazing.
Yeah, Men in Black is a bunch
of like Oath of the Watchers paladin or something like that.
Yeah, and they all take Modify Memory.
And they all take Modify. Oh my god, yes, that'd be so good. That'd be brilliant. But yeah, this one's really cool because again, if you want to get the first one's just like it's an academy, it's a university, it's an archive. I mean, again, it could be an archive of wizards or of like monks. It could be the Sun Soul monks that are all punching sunlight out of their hands. and you can still make it magical, but this was like inherently weird and otherworldly. It's like I said, it's an elder dragon, it's a lich, it's a death god, it's a primal manifestation. It can be a bunch of really weird stuff, and you could have right from the get go. Like imagine session one of a campaign, and the DM goes, right, you're all dead. You wake up in a death god's lair, and you're like, sorry. Let me just, I think that's just be a really that's a hot start if ever I heard one,
The Bound Fiend one immediately sent my mind spiraling with ideas, because that would be a really cool villain organization. Or if you wanted to do the like wipe them at level 1, kill them, bring them back. They don't know why they're back. They all have slightly different new abilities. Maybe like one or two. Maybe they all get like a cantrip or something. And they're all like,
yeah,
why can we do this now? And you just draw that out for a few levels and then eventually make the big reveal, like, oh no, yeah, you all remember now, you died, but you sold your soul to me to come back, and now
what if you did it as like not at the start of a campaign, but what if you had an accidental TPK and the whole party dies and everyone's like, oh shit, I guess the campaign's over, I guess they'll roll up new characters or whatever, and then the next session you come back and you are all dead, but you've been brought, like, and because the lich killed you all with Circle of Death, but then you get brought back the next campaign by a rival lich who's like, I brought you back because I don't like that guy and I need for you to kill him for me. And then like you could have a whole thing where like I'd actually love to do like a reveal where if anybody in the party or anything like that casts like a paladin uses divine sense, or someone uses anything that detects like undead or anything, and you could be like, you all have an undead aura about you because you're all currently undead because you're serving this lich.
I thought you were going to be even crueler than that and be like, no, you get like, you get Circle of Death by a lich and you get TPK'd, and then the lich raises you and now you work for him.
Really good. That'd be amazing. Oh my god, yeah.
That's where I thought you were going with it.
I like that a lot too, though, because I mean, like, it'd be cool to be like, to be able to get the opportunity to get back at that person if a different lich rolls you because they're a rival, but also to kind of not so much to punish the players, but to wind them up a little bit by going, now you have to work for the guy who just killed you all. That'd be so good.
Yeah.
Oh my god. There are others in here that I will go through some of them. Well, a lot of them are the same. Some of them have some of the same benefits. A lot of them will offer you places to stay because they have guild halls or castles or whatever. Some of them will offer you information or access to certain resources. The next one here is the aristocrat, which can be like a powerful member of society. They can be like a lord, a lady, a merchant, something like that. This one I'm kind of currently in the middle of, because you guys have just started a new guild, which is a monster hunter guild called the Venatori Obscura. And in that guild, you basically have been primarily funded by a woman named Lady Vivienne, who is a local lady in the aristocracy of Redalia. And she has an interest in it because her husband was killed by otherworldly beings when portals that shouldn't have been opened were opened and stuff like that, and he got murdered. So she's like, if your organization is about that, about stopping stuff like that from happening to other people, I will happily fund that for you. So she basically gave you like five plus grand to buy your hall and do it up and make sure it's equipped so you guys can run your business. And yeah, I think that one's pretty cool. I think this kind of reminds me a little bit of the Kingkiller Chronicles, where Kvothe ends up he becomes the bard of a lord because he needs a patron to like fund his career. And it's a very, very cool idea in that sense,
Yeah, and just straight up based on like real life as well. That's how most art and music and anything got made during the Renaissance period. Like all of those amazing like Renaissance frescoes and all the statues and all the various works of like masterpieces in art that were created and like in around the Renaissance period. None of those would have happened without very wealthy people being able to spend a lot of money to pay very talented people to make art as a status symbol. Like that, literally, like that kind of art boom in the Renaissance was only able to come about because of a system of patronage that was able to come about because Italy and I believe Florence, I think it was Florence in particular.
Florence
and Milan got incredibly wealthy from a select few number of banking families, and then that enabled a merchant middle class that enabled people to be like, oh, I have a lot of disposable income. How will I show this off? Leonardo, make me a painting, please. And that's literally how it happened. So having those kind of rules in D&D makes perfect sense to me.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's very. I mean, like the benefit for them being that they get to be like, whenever that artist or that musician or whoever introduces themselves and goes, "That's a wonderful piece you played," and that person will always go, "Oh, thank you so much. I couldn't have done it without the patronage of Lord blah blah blah." Because then they're like, "Oh, that person is the reason you're able to create music."
Yeah.
That's a thing of status for them.
Or like sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, I mean, the benefit for the artist, obviously, and the player, I suppose, in this case, is like you get to make stuff, you get to continue your adventuring and all that. The benefit for them is they get to be like, I made this person what he or she is. I made like they wouldn't have written that symphony if it wasn't for me, you know.
It's the same logic as why like bards and skalds were like so treated so well and feared in equal measure. In like particularly in ancient Celtic Ireland, because like if you didn't treat the poet well, if you didn't treat the poet, like if the king didn't feed him and put him up and treat him like a member of his family, he'd go okay and then go off to the next kingdom, and then the songs he would sing and the poems he would recite at that kingdom would be about how shit and stingy the previous king was.
Yeah.
Like, and that would do serious damage to someone's reputation. Like, so yeah, I just
pen and the sword and all that jazz.
100%, yeah. So but this is like, yeah, I'm getting ideas already that I want to put into my world. I'm like, is it too late to do this?
It's a really cool idea. I think actually what you're talking about there reminds me of that scene in Game of Thrones where that guy is brought to the throne room and he was just singing some songs down in Flea Bottom, and he performs this shitty little song on his lute or whatever in front of Joffrey, and they're like, "That's a very good song you've just written." And he's like, what's the name of the really cruel Meryn Trent?
Yeah.
He goes, "Sir Meryn, take his tongue, please." And he's like, no, he asks him, "What do you like more, your tongue or your fingers?" And then I think he ends up taking his tongue, because he's either you won't be able to sing or you won't be able to play your instrument, but one of these has been taken from you today.
Yeah. Jesus.
Yeah. Up next, we have criminal syndicates. This one's pretty straightforward. It's your typical thieves guild, assassins guild, and there's a couple interesting ones actually. One second, there's some really weird ones I saw here. One is magical arms dealers, which is pretty cool. Pirate fleet, love it.
Yes.
Body snatchers, which is interesting. It's basically a syndicate who tries to replace people in society so that they have, positioned everywhere under their control, like imagine a guild of doppelgangers.
Oh my god, I took that completely. I thought you meant like, because like body snatchers were a thing when you couldn't do when at the start of medical science rather, when they were when they're dissecting bodies, like to get bodies for dissection, it was normally either criminals, or if there weren't any criminals around, there would be criminals who would go and steal bodies from graveyards and bring them in for dissection. And like that, when you said body snatchers, that's what I thought it would be like a guild of people who go out and like steal bodies from graveyards and smuggle them in for.
I mean, that could totally be a thing as well if they were like, imagine like a guild of grave robbers like that who like steal bodies in order to necromancy them back to life, and then they have a bunch of like hireable undead assassins or hireable undead brutes that can guard your club or rob a bank for you or anything like that.
Literally an assassin, an assassin organization that I have in my current world at the moment does that. All of their assassins are like, a lot of their assassins are like undead, and then cool. Other ones are mixed in with like other ones are like Shadowblades.
Oh, nice, yeah. There's actually, if you look, I don't know, if you look in, no, sorry, it's the sea one, the ocean one, what's it called?
Saltmarsh.
Ghost Saltmarsh. There's some monsters in that which are called like drowned blade things. Yes. So basically undead assassins that are really powerful.
They're very cool.
Yeah. And the last one here, which I thought was amazing, was thought thieves. These psychic criminals infiltrate their targets' minds and steal secrets and disguise their existence. It's
Inception.
That's awesome.
That's Inception. What? That's literally Inception.
It's a plot to Inception. I just think it's really cool because like that's kind of like, you deal in information almost.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you could be like a College of Whispers bard. You could be someone like you kill someone, but then they can do a thing where they kill someone, then they extract the information from them.
Yeah. Can't they do a
They
thing
can
as well? They steal someone's shadow and they get their surface memories.
They can impersonate them.
Oh god, sorry. Yeah. College of Shadows is probably up there with my favorite, like thematically wise, my favorite bard colleges because they're so cool.
They're very, very cool. And like you could do it as well with even like a wizard or anyone like that who has like divination magic. They can induce detect thoughts and stuff like that.
Multi-class college of bard with like a great old one, patron warlock, or the psionic sorcerer, and have someone who can not only read someone's mind but steal their appearance as well.
That's very cool.
The ultimate spy, like.
There's some cool ones in that. There's some stuff parts with the syndicate one that are interesting because like you do have to pay back into the organization. So there's a thing where like if you do a job, you don't get any consistent pay, but if you do a job, you get to keep 85% of the reward of the payment for the thing, but 15% has to go to the actual guild, which makes sense. But
gotta pay your dues.
That could be a point of contention if. What if the guild is suddenly maybe the guy in charge doesn't like your team, so they're like, it's 20 for you guys until I decide I like you again.
Yeah.
And then maybe you want to kill him or something like that as a result.
Or what if you're part of a guild and you go through and you like you go on some, like you're on like doing some kind of personal quest intersects with a guild quest and you kill someone from your backstory, and like they have like stolen your familial blade, and your familial blade is counted as part of the loot haul, and they go,
yeah,
that blade's worth about 15%.
Yeah, I mean, like you wouldn't argue with them because they're the ones in charge. They're running the organization.
That's a pickle though.
Absolutely, that'd be a good one. A good one, like you could be like, no, take this much gold or take these rubies or whatever.
Take my tongue. Take my tongue.
There's also a thing with them where they have access to fences, so selling stolen goods as per the selling magic items thing in Sanithars.
Cool.
And there's one here which I thought was interesting where you get a discount on businesses that you found as long as they double as laundering fronts for the guild.
Very
which
cool.
I think is really, really cool.
That's really cool.
That's a really cool thing because it's like not only are you part of the organization, but you can build up infrastructure for the organization by setting up all these different fronts.
Then start hiring
safe houses as well.
Then start hiring people to run protection rackets.
Exactly. Yeah. There is a typical guild, and that could be anything from the woodcutters guild to the weavers guilds to the sailors guild or whatever, and they can offer training. And they did something with this actually. 1 second now. They do money changers actually and stuff as well, so they can they can be craftsmen, they can be actual merchants, and they can be magic item merchants. They can be money changers, which deal in like they'll do banking stuff, but also like auctions and stuff like that as well, which I think is interesting.
Cool.
There is this one here. All right, so identity traders. These enigmatic dealers buy and sell documents, memories, and trappings of thoroughly lived lives, selling them to those in need of an ultimate fresh start. That's like you're selling off it. Like you wouldn't even.
You're an identity thief, like.
It's Total Recall. It's a movie, Total Recall. You're giving a brand new identity.
Do I get to be Arnold?
Like, you could be Arnold, or you can be Colin Farrell.
I will take Arnold.
Okay then.
Because Arnold is numero uno.
I think that was a really cool idea for one. And like I said, they offer training and to do a thing where like you can stay in the guild hall for cheaper than what you would get elsewhere and stuff like that, which is typical. That's typical of a lot of these. A lot of these have either safe houses or guild halls where you can either stay for free or you get a discount on staying there, which is handy, because it literally pays to be part of the organization.
Yeah, it's what you pay your dues for.
There is military forces, so this can be anything from mercenaries, an order of knights, an actual sovereign army, or anything like that. The one that jumped out at me on this one was that they get a 20% discount on non-magical weapons and armor, which I thought was pretty slick.
That's pretty sick, because like a full suit of plate costs 1,500 gold, so like 20% off that would be a significant amount of saving. Like
1,200 quid instead, saving 300 quid. Wouldn't say no to it.
Damn, yeah.
So the ones that do here are Standing Army, Mercenary Company, Expeditionary Force, Horde. So you're just a horde of orcs, like Planar conscripts and sky warriors,
Ooh,
which I'm
planar.
pretty sure they stole from me because I had the sky wardens in my first campaign. No, I'm kidding.
Planar conscript sounds very cool.
This military force battles for cosmic stakes on far-flung planes of the multiverse, or
Oh,
fights against extraplanar invasion on the material plane.
do you know what this is?
Warriors include conscripts pressed into service in the Blood War, father in the thrall of ruthless Yugoloth mercenaries, or members of a glorious celestial host defending against fiendish incursion.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh, that's
really
so
cool.
cool. Do you know what I immediately thought? Oh God, why did I just lose his thought again there? The one like the Heavenly Conscripts one. Oh, sorry. Yeah, now I've gotten it. There's two comic book things that I thought of right away there. The Heavenly Conscript ones. Have you ever read Spawn?
No, I know of
Okay.
Spawn, but I haven't read
So
Spawn.
like Spawn in Spawn, one of his more powerful antagonists is someone who's basically the reverse of him, whereas Spawn is someone who sold his soul to the devil, and has been made like he's essentially eventually will be a general in Hell's armies in the final war, and like he has all these magical powers and stuff. Well, there's an entity called the Redeemer who is the opposite of Spawn, who is a particularly pious individual filled with holy fire to go down and fight the Hellspawn. And so as soon as I said that, I was like, oh, that would be so cool. And then as well, I thought of do you know the 90s Spider-Man cartoons when Madam Web collects all the different versions of Spider-Man?
Yes.
Yeah, that's immediately what I was like, oh. And then like for more comic book ones, you've got like the Battle World, like our Secret Wars, when the Beyonder just gets everybody and makes them all fight. Oh,
Yeah, puts them all on one world together.
that would be really fun to have. You could have like if you have a 5-person party, you could just let them go wild what races they want to pick, and then like you're like, okay, based on what races they pick, they're on different planes, and then like this like hooded figure or like this angelic entity just appears in front of them, or like a burning symbol in holy fire appears in front of them and makes a door, and they're like called in and like pulled in through this portal and arrive in a separate plane that none of them are from, to like defend, like, I don't know, like this one like holy relic or holy site from like this encroaching army.
You could do like kind of it's Beyonder-ish, but his thing was like he was doing that to like, was the Beyonder like, didn't he gather them all kind of almost for just entertainment?
I think so. It was just to see I think it was just to see who's the strongest. It's been a long time since I read that one. The last one.
But like you could do it that like there could be a Beyonder type being, but that summons people from all over the material and the multiverse and stuff like that, because it's like, hey, I'm sending you into like the astral sea. I've chosen each of you because you are the mighty, kind of like the Predators movie where they choose everyone because they're particularly deadly, but in this case you're choosing everyone because they are valiant, righteous heroes that will do what it needs to be done to save reality itself. And you could be like, I'm sending you in as this Avengers, this high level Avengers people, or the material plane's mightiest heroes.
Alfalfa, I need teens with attitude.
Or Sword Art, yeah, gosh.
Oh, it's just Alpha. Sorry, because it's Alpha 5. Yeah, Alfalfa is the Little Rascals.
Alfalfa is from the Little Rascals. I was wondering where you were going with that.
Oh, I should be ashamed. I have the fucking dragon dagger right here.
You do.
And I'm gonna now.
But yeah, I think there's some really, really cool ones. Military organization I can see being popular simply because a lot of D&D revolves around combat.
Yeah, a lot of martial classes as well. You have to learn to fight from somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, some of the other ones I think work just fine. Guild, I feel like, is probably one of the not weaker ones, but it's probably one of the ones where it's like, I am a woodworker, I am a farmer, I am a sailor, whatever, but I'm primarily going to be a ranger or a fighter or a wizard or some other class.
Yeah.
I feel like the guild one could take a background, whereas with the criminal syndicate, if you play a rogue assassin, you can your background is criminal syndicate.
Yeah.
Your day-to-day is working for the criminal syndicate.
It would be fun to have a rogue in a party that was still going around just doing adventuring things, but every so often in the campaign you get like a black letter, and means
you're like asked to do something.
Yeah, you get like a black letter, and it's like, oh shit, the black letter is here. This is the boss. This is the mission. I have to do this. Like,
and would that be like an assassin thing? Like, here's a name, take him out.
Yeah, like that's the most straightforward and obvious one to go for. Would be like periodically you're given you get like a secret message that only you can decode, and it's like name, description, location, target acquired.
There's the Oblivion has some of the best Dark Brotherhood quests, because they're not just go and kill this person. Like, of all of them, a lot of them are kill this person, but like you have to be creative with it. There's two that jump out at me that could stand for really good D&D quests. One of them is you need to kill this person, but you can't just run into their house and stab them. One, because they have this big fuck off bodyguard, who will absolutely pummel you if you do. But two, it needs to seem like an accident. And what you actually do is you have to use a secret passage to get into their house. You go above into the crawl space upstairs, and you loosen the straps on this big mounted troll head. And then the thing, because he always sits in his chair in front of the fire in the evening times with a drink, and when you do that, the thing falls and kills him.
You've definitely played the Hitman games, haven't you?
I actually haven't.
Because I haven't either. But like everything I've seen of them, that's literally the point of the game. You make the most absurd accident.
Yeah. But like this was Oblivion, so this was the Dark Brotherhood. There's another mission in that where you go to a town, and you've been hired by the Dark Brotherhood to kill the person who hired you. But what he does is he gives you a special blade coated with a poison that will make him appear dead. And the idea is someone's coming to kill him, but he wants to run away, but he knows they'll find him. So what happens is he's hired the Dark Brother. He's like, I need you to stage a killing of me, that you're killing me for a different reason. So you wait in his house until the guy comes to kill him, and he's like, your time's up, and he draws his sword, and then you drop down out of the shadows, and you stab him with this blade, and he immediately goes like limp and falls over dead. And then when he's lying on the ground dead, the other fellow's like, well, he was my target. Oh, okay, whatever. And then you bring him to the sanctuary, the Dark Brotherhood sanctuary, and he wakes up like hours later, and he's like, oh, I can start my new life now. But I'm like, that's such a good way. Like, you don't hire them to like mercilessly stab someone in the throat. You hire them to kill you as framing so you can get away. It's just a really honestly, the Oblivion Dark Brotherhood quests are second to none. They're just such unique takes on the idea of being an assassin. They're phenomenal, and I think like you could have some really good stuff like that with your criminal syndicate as well. I like the idea of the black letters, where they're a very specific thing, and it's not like ooh boy, a job. It's like, oh shit, I cannot mess this up. This is a big deal. Like,
there's an organization in the Night Angel books called the Sakage, and very much your kind of usual thieves guild thing, but they basically run the whole country. Secretly, right. And there's a bit in it where the main character's teacher is getting threatened by the king. Wants to hire the main character is the apprentice of the best magical assassin in the country, possibly in the world, and the king is trying to hire his master to be basically his guard dog, and the king is a little shit. So he's like, I would literally rather disembowel myself than spend a second of my time working for that little shit on the throne. And he sends the king sends his best general to try and argue with him, and he's like, oh, we've got the room surrounded, you can't get out, this is your apprentice here that we've seen you run around with. You can say what you want, but we know you spend too much time, you care about this kid. We'd rather not spill his blood and yours here. Like, you might get away, but he definitely won't, and we will take him out. So like, because it's all told from the apprentice's point of view. The next thing that happens is he sees about a foot of steel jut out of the middle of his chest, and he like freaks out, like, what the fuck, and he like feels like he's been stabbed through the chest, and then the general is freaking out, like, what the fuck, and he's like, yeah, this is my assassin, this is my apprentice, I don't care. Life has no value. When we take a life, we take nothing worth of value. This is my apprentice, I'll just make another one. And he like lets the kid drop over onto the ground dead. The general like runs out freaking out. What it's revealed later is that what actually happened was they drugged the general, and to make it look real, he used he didn't tell his apprentice. He used a drugged needle, stabbed him in the back with the needle, And
Right.
the needle was a similar thing, like tetrodotoxin, or like Joe thinking, oh, all but dead, appear very dead. But
Yeah.
that kind of thing, right? And then he used a tiny bit of illusion magic to make it look like a bloody blade had popped out of the front of his apprentice's chest, and drug the general, so the general couldn't tell that it was an illusion. So the general went back and reported that, look, no, we've nothing on this guy. He killed his own apprentice in front of me. What can we do? Next chapter, apprentice wakes up going, what the fuck? He explains what happens. He goes, okay, your name used to be Azoth. Your name isn't Azoth anymore. Your name is Kyler. Dye your hair black.
That's pretty metal.
It's really awesome.
Yeah.
So
I think I've seen that in something else.
It's probably something similar done in another thing, but like you can do like just the opportunities for cool stuff like that to happen just with the group patron stuff now, like particularly with the criminal stuff. Like I love anything because like sometimes when you're a DM and you're trying to motivate play forward, if you're not on like a backstory arc, you're just on like a general arc, or your players are just exploring. I find sometimes it can be hard to come up with a reason for something to happen, you know, and stuff like group patrons where you give extra attachments, extra little threads that you can pull on to motivate a journey, motivate a quest, stuff like that, like with your Assassin's Guild sending you a target, or like say you're in a monster hunter guild and you walk into a town and they have like a listing for your monster hunter guild with a thing on it, or you get a letter, or like you're traveling and like a letter appears out of a fire to you, and it's from your guild, and they're like, they like magically track you with your guild mark or whatever, and they're like, we noticed your 2 days ride from this town in the west. They've reported X monster has been harassing them. Can you go and sort that out?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I'm just a big fan of anything that makes it easier to motivate and give more reasons for players to do cool shit.
No, absolutely. Like you said, that's the thing. I mean, motivation and kind of aligning players that they're, because sometimes wrangling players is a bit like wrangling cats. Like this player wants to do this, and these two players want to do that. This person just wants to go to the tavern and roll on carousing tables for the 5th week in a row. And it can get very chaotic. But like the group patron thing, you can point everyone in the right direction, and like it can be a case of, I mean, just to look at the criminal organization. Or even the military force, with the criminal organization, if all the players aren't going to do the job, then what use are you to the guild of assassins? You know, assassins might just show up and straight up and murder a member of the party, or at least try to be like, right, so have we made our point when I stabbed you in the chest 4 times? Good, go and do the thing I told you to do. Yeah. Or like the military one, it could be like, you can't enter any towns in this kingdom because you're on the run, you've deserted, and you're wanted for desertion. You'll just be thrown in a cell as soon as you walk into any of these towns. Like, there's reasoning where you like go, well, I don't want that to happen. I should do what the patron says. Yeah. But I mean, like, at the same time, that can also be fun if you want to go against that. You want to break out away from the Assassin's Guild, and you're like, okay, I need to kill X, Y, and Z high-ranking member, so that they will stop pursuing me. That could be a really cool quest in and of itself.
They did that with Vax in the class in Critical Role Season 1. It was really fun. Do you remember he had to get the Keyleth burn the class mark tattoo off his back?
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
That was very fun.
There's 2 more orders or things. One of them is religious order, pretty straightforward. Although they do have you're basically like a group of paladins, group of clerics, a crusade of knights from the church, whatever. Very cool. However, there's a thing here that is that if you're a member of the organization, 2 things happen. One, you all get proficiency in religion, which is pretty cool and makes sense if you're a part of the religious organization. The second one is spells up to 5th. You can go to an NPC, like a cleric of that particular church or organization, and any spell you need them to cast up to 5th level, they will cast with no material components required.
Oh my god, that's a game changer. That's a game changer.
That's really, really cool. I thought that was absolutely amazing.
That includes Revivify, Greater Restoration, Lesser Restoration, like basically all of the really good healing and status effect removal spells, and some of the really good because Raise Dead is 5th level.
I believe Raise Dead is 5th level. Yeah.
No, it is, because that's what White Party used to bring back in Oni after they cut all its limbs off.
That's right, yeah.
And then torture it to death again.
But I mean, like, I thought that was, and like, that could be really cool as well, to be like a a party of crusading knights, and you're being sent into, spread the word of your religion and show that like, oh, this god is very just and wise, and we'll show you because we'll defend your town if you will build a monastery or a shrine to them or something. I thought that was very cool. The last one then we have is sovereign, which is basically any sort of lord, lady, ruler, king, emperor, whatever. You work directly for them, which could be super, super cool. Yeah, I get vibes of like Final Fantasy 15, where like the king had like, I forget what they were called. The king had his own set of like soldiers, like elite soldiers that worked directly for him.
Or like Leonidas in his 300.
Yeah, absolutely. Where like you work for the king directly. He gives you all your missions. There's no middleman. You report back to this person.
You're a Kingsguard. Yeah.
You're basically the Kingsguard. Oh, was it Glaive? Something Glaive? Kingsglaive. They were called the Kingsglaive.
Okay. Oh yeah, that was
called Kings. There's an animated movie about it that sets up the game.
That's why I've heard that before. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the Kingsglaive are his elite guard, and they work directly for the king, and they're also his bodyguards and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that's a really cool one. Two things about this. One is you would have access to the highest levels of society. So if you're working directly for the king or the emperor or anything like that, if you walked up to any military place or anything like that and you flash your badge that shows, hey, I'm one of the king's guard, you're getting let into that place.
Yep.
Second one, which I thought was also very interesting, is that you could potentially requisition to be reimbursed for, and this is in the book, for extraordinary expenses is how it puts it. So you could be like, yes, we needed to buy this townhouse, which was 5,000 gold pieces. Can we just get that put on the books? And it's like, of course, I'm the king. I have access to the treasury. Let me just mark that off for you.
Yeah, here's my receipt for today. What is it today? Belt to Storm Giant Strength.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like this. You're only meant to use the company credit card for necessities. The Storm Giant belt was a necessity.
I need to be 28 strength.
I need to have 20. It's actually 29.
It is actually 29.
Yeah. So I remember it's all odd numbers. I need a 29 strength. I'm sorry.
I want one so bad because if I have that and then I use my Frost rune, I would hit 30 strength.
Oh my god, you would. Well, yeah. Does that actually? How does the? That's something that I should look into, because it always says with the belts that it sets your thing at this.
I think I'm wrong there, because I think you are right. It would set your strength at this level, and you can't. I don't think it would stack.
Yeah, because I don't know. I mean, it sets it to that, but then it also says like if your strength is higher, it doesn't affect it.
Yeah,
it's weird. I would probably allow it for the sake of a +1 extra. I would probably allow it.
Yeah.
But that's really, really cool. But yeah, that's everything on group patrons and the various organizations. I think this forms such a cool foundation. This is stuff I would talk about in session 1, session 0 even. I get people together. I'm like, all right, I'm thinking about running a campaign in this country. Here's a little bit about it. Do you guys want to be part of any of these group patrons? And if they're going like, if a bunch of people are like, I want to play rogue, I want to play fighter, and blah blah, I want to have a criminal background, and you could go, well, do you want to be a part of a criminal syndicate? We can do it like that. You guys are in a guild together and stuff. I think this is the kind of thing that should totally be discussed in. Doesn't have to be, but can totally be discussed in session 0, and you can decide together. We are doing this job because we all work for this person or this place, and I think that's super, super cool. The same thing if you want, like, if there's a paladin and a cleric, and then there's like a celestial warlock, and then there's like a knight, there's a fighter, like, or whatever, but he is a religious fighter who worships the god of war. And you're like, why don't you all just be part of the church then? You can be a group of traveling church warriors, you know? I think it's super, super cool if you're doing the kind of thing where you plan out your session. At session 1, you sit down together, or session 0, I should say. You sit down together and you can decide amongst yourselves what will be fun to play.
Yeah. Stuff like this would also obviously make stuff like a military campaign way easier to run and more enjoyable, because it would be less for the DM too, because like less having to actually come up with fresh new mechanics and seeing if they're balanced and seeing if what do you have like stuff there ready for you. So yeah, I anything that lets you kind of add more layers of depth to your interactions with each other and gives you more options, I'm always down for.
There's actually a section here at the very end I forgot about, which is it's basically running your own or becoming your own patron, which is an interesting one, and lets you. It kind of turns the tables a little bit, and
like
then it kind of puts
you go back in time, and you with your.
No, not like that. Back in 1955.
Look, I'm just saying, could Marty McFly have been his own patron?
Oh God, there's that's Futurama.
Yeah,
Christ, his own grandfather.
That past nastification.
There's a John Mulaney stand-up bit where he talks about the pitch meeting for Back to the Future, and they're like, it's a summer family movie, and we thought, oh, I'm embarrassed to say now, but we thought it'd be funny if he almost had sex with his mom. It's honestly, watch. It's either the Comeback Kid or one. He's two shows on Netflix. One of them he does a whole bit about Back to the Future and how how did that movie get made?
Yeah, because as Avengers stuff, Back to the Future is bullshit.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, Martin, I think group patrons, like I said, absolutely awesome and thing to include. Once again, Tasha just proves that it's one of the best books that you can possibly buy.
Yeah.
For 5th edition.
I'd consider it core at this stage.
What?
I'd consider it core at this stage, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, there's actually some magic items in here, which we might discuss at a later term. There's some spells, there's magic items, there's new mechanics, there's classes. Honestly, I'm just going to show it here, the limited edition one.
Yeah, I knew you would.
Yeah.
It's
hey,
very,
what's
very
the point of getting the limited edition if you're not going to show it off to everybody? But yeah, Martin.
Yes, Connor.
I think that's all the time we have for today.
It's been a good one, man. It's been a good one. I feel like I learned a lot because I honestly didn't know a whole ton, as you could have probably guessed from when you asked me what a group patron was. But then, literally, as I was answering the question, realised that we had a group patron. So yeah, an elucidating experience for sure. I think I'm using that word correctly.
Do you know what? I don't have a degree in English, but I'm going to say you are. I'm granting myself that authority.
Sure thing. I'll allow it.
But yeah, I know. I think honestly, just Tasha's in general is amazing, but these rules I think can form the solid basis to a new campaign, particularly if you've done the we're a bunch of random adventurers thing multiple times. And you're kind of looking for something a little bit different. If you've been the wacky motley crew of randos, maybe you want to try something new. What if we all sat down and said, hey, we're all going to be religious people of some way, shape, or form. We all worship the same god or group of gods, and we're all going to be part of the church, and we're going to go on missions for the church specifically. I think something like that could be super cool, or like any of the others as well. But there's Matt Coble does a video where he talks about the Hobbit in the sense of it being a D&D game, and he talks about how a bunch of players sat down and they're like, oh, and the DM put the map that he drew out in front of him. It's like, what's this here? There's like a dragon by this mountain, and he's like, oh yeah, that's a dwarven kingdom. There's a dragon there. He drove all the dwarves out, but there's a ton of gold left there. And they were like, oh, we were thinking about playing dwarves. What if we all play dwarves together? And then our mission is to go and get kill the dragon and get the gold. And having that discussion in a session 0 and including these rules for patrons, could, like I said, it can form the basis of a really solid jumping off point for your D&D campaign.
Yeah, it's like a really strong, just foundational reason as to why you guys are together, other than we're friends.
Yeah, it typically forms with it's typically we're friends, or we don't really talk about the fact that it makes no sense that we're all hanging out together and have formed this adventuring party.
Yeah, sometimes you'll also get people who will actually make their characters friends or related to each other or from the same town. But weirdly, we've never had that in a game.
We haven't, yeah,
which is mad.
You would think after all the different characters and stuff. Myself and Dan have talked about it a lot about playing essentially the two characters from Road to El Dorado.
Yeah.
One of us would be a bard and one of us would be a rogue, and we just play the two of them essentially as halflings.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Which would be really funny. But yeah, I mean, weirdly, none of us have ever been siblings or related or any of that stuff.
Oh my god! I just realized you could make a full party out of like a Disney movie protagonists, because you've got the two lads from the Road to El Dorado, right? They're your bard and your rogue. Hercules is your fighter. Aladdin is your thief. Oh no, you already have a rogue. Sorry. Hercules is your fighter. Who does magic in Disney? Lots of people. Damn it. It's not important.
Actually, okay. Last thing before we wrap up. And I need to find it now because it's actually one of the best things I've ever seen on YouTube.
Okay.
It's basically a guy who does Disney D&D art. It's ABD, Alpha Bravo Delta, ABD Illustrations. And he does these absolutely outstanding interpretations of Disney princesses and Disney characters as classes. Ooh. So, like, for example, this is what just prime example. In one of the first videos, he does Cinderella as a pact of the Fae Warlock because she has a fairy godmother.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And her armor is made out of glass, like the glass slippers and stuff.
Sick.
And she has I think she has a pact of the chain as well. So she has a mouse that sits on her shoulder that is her chain pact creature. Yeah, but because in the movie they have a bunch of mice and stuff, it's really good. Mulan is like a warrior. She's like a fighter. I think he makes Belle into an artificer because her dad was kind of an inventor, so he carries that on, and she's well read and everything. So like it's honestly, so ABD Illustrations, look it up. He also does a bunch of other ones where he makes the villains into classes as well. One of the single greatest things I've ever seen, and really, really inspiring to see these characters taken and adapted into D&D. And with that, if you have any questions you'd like us to ask, stories you'd like us to cover, or topics you'd like us to cover, or stories you'd like us to share, please tweet us at Micflayers Pod. You see it on the lowest screen. You can find us our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor Breaker, and Radio Republic. Martin, where can people find you on the internet?
Most of the time you find me here on the Micflayers podcast. Other than that, you can find me on Twitter at So Sorry It's Over, which is in the bottom right hand corner of my screen here. You can also find me a lot of time on the Micflayers podcast Twitter account, which is at Micflayers Pod, like Conor mentioned, and that's in the bottom right hand corner of the screen as well. And yeah, other than that, you can most of the time find me here on every new episode of the Micflayers podcast. Where can people find you on the internet, Conor?
You can find me every Friday here on the Micflayers podcast at 6 p.m. Irish time on all the previously aforementioned platforms. Mm-hmm. And also you can find me on Twitter at 0.Conor, ZEROPOINTCONOR, 1N, very important. And like I said, that's it from us, guys. So it's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me.
There you go. Okay.
I thought you were going to and a goodbye from Martin. I thought you were going.
You know what? We don't do it consistently enough because sometimes one of us will say it's a goodbye from me and wait for the other person. Yeah. And sometimes we'll go and it's a goodbye from Martin, and so it doesn't matter. Thank you all for listening / watching. We'll see you all next time.
What
guys.
is this?
Talk to you later.
Bye. Bye.